Welcome to the Steve OG Rock podcast. Today we'll be talking to the Intersphere, two members of the Intersphere, in fact, Christoph and Daniel. They're a German rock band who recently released an album called Wanderer, which I thought was a masterpiece. If you're interested in checking out my review of that, it's on the YouTube channel. Now, at the very end of the interview that I did with the band, as soon as I stopped the recording on my laptop crashed and did not save the local recording that I had been making during the interview, which was a harrowing moment. But luckily, I always have backups, and I managed to get the Zoom recording of the interview. So that is what you're going to hear and see now if you're watching this on YouTube. So the quality of the recording isn't quite at the level that I was originally intending. However, the conversation is of high quality. There were some really fascinating things. I learned some new things about a bass pedal that I'd never heard of before, which was kind of cool. And it was really fascinating to hear about their songwriting process, and the way that they actually record as well was pretty interesting. So enjoy this interview with the Intersphere. I am delighted to be joined by the lead singer and guitarist Christoph and the bassist Daniel from the rock band The Intersphere, a band I somehow only discovered in the earlier part of this year, thanks to a recommendation from one of my patrons. Shout out to Leander Nels, by the way, for that. And their latest album, Wanderer, came out a couple of months ago, and it is a phenomenal record. I'm excited to talk about that record and the band and their history and where they might be going. And if the internet is to be believed, the band's been together for nearly 20 years. So I can't wait to find out as well a little bit more about the history there. Now, to start with, to establish some context here, where do we find you in this conversation? So the album came out 3 months ago. Are you still in the thick of kind of touring it and promoting it, or are you having a little bit of time to rest at this stage? Where are you in the time scale here?
Well, at the moment, we had the first release tour, like right when we had the album release in the end of May. So we played the major German cities, which was, for us at least, a huge success. Almost every show was sold out. So that was the big promo phase in the beginning. We had a couple of music videos, as you know, of course, because of your reaction videos. Yeah. And at the moment, it feels actually a little bit like a small rest, because we have the big tour then, or the second part of the tour in the beginning of next year. And we're going to release a couple of live videos until then. But yeah, it's kind of like the big wave during the release phase is now over, but the next one is coming soon.
Right, I see. And is your creative process continuous? I mean, have you been writing new songs all the while since the kind of recording is finished, or do you kind of have a bit of a pause between one record to close that chapter and then start a new one? How do you do that?
Mostly we have a pause between all the records because we're touring a lot, and I need some space to find new ideas and all that stuff. So, but I also tried some new licks and some new riff stuff, and I'm really looking forward to present everything the guys next time.
Nice. I thought that makes sense. Otherwise, you're going to end up writing the next album all about life in the studio and recording techniques, and that might not be the most interesting, perhaps. Okay, I guess that does make sense. But I suppose, if you're on tour, you might have a lick you happen to play in rehearsal or on stage as your sound check, and you think, oh, there's an idea, I'll capture that, right? In terms of your band, the first song I heard was Wanderer, and a phenomenal song. When I looked into your band afterwards, I was surprised to learn that despite the English vocals, that you are based in Germany. Is everyone in the band German by nationality? Is that the makeup of the band itself?
Yeah, that's the case. Yeah.
Nice. German, yeah. What I'm fascinated to know. I mean, I'm very grateful, because if you sing in English, then I can understand it, and I love the lyrics. But I'm fascinated by the decision to have English be the language of the band. Has that been the case since the start, and is that what led to that decision?
It's a thing that I learned rock music. So for me, rock music is English, and it's for me it's the best sounding language for singing, and so it was no decision in the beginning. There was no question. We started to play rock music, and so we sang in English. Yeah.
I see. Is that because the rock bands maybe that you were influenced by were generally singing in English at the time when you were kind of learning to play, and you wanted to emulate them? Is that maybe where it was coming from?
I mean, maybe if you have a look at it like the other way around, like I don't know a lot of German bands that do like the rock music that we love and sing in German. There was like a phase or a generation of bands, like, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, where there was a big wave of new German rock bands that sang in German, but most of them weren't quite as heavy, I would say, or sometimes I have to admit it sounded a bit like it was, like I don't know, like they wanted to ride that new wave that was coming, so not really like a artistic decision, but more like a commercial decision. And I think sometimes it can work pretty well. I used to play in a German rock band that sang German as well, but that was kind of a different sound than the one that we do. So I think, I don't know, from an artistic point of view, I guess it's just, like Christoph said, it's the music that we grew up with, and I think we just didn't see a reason to not to sing in English. I think we have to put it in that way. That's
fascinating. I didn't realize that was a thing at all. I thought maybe it was in an effort to have a kind of global audience in America or Britain or somewhere like that, in the large English-speaking areas of things. Do you? I guess the expectation there would be that hopefully even everyone in Germany would understand enough English to follow your lyrics and get the meaning out of it that you're projecting within it. Is that something that you're finding at the gigs, or do they ever say, would you write a song in German for us at some stage, or does that not really kind of come up?
No, that's not really the case, to be honest. I mean, maybe one of every 2,000 of a concert visitor maybe asks that question, but usually everybody's used to that. I mean, there are also many especially young Germans that also watch TV series and movies in English. So it's second nature, I would say. It's
Well, that's very helpful and handy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Who were your influences? Who inspired you originally to pick up an instrument and say, I want to learn bass, I want to learn guitar, I want to have a piece of this kind of rock music world?
I started with all the crunch bands. I loved Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and later then bands like Dredge, and in the 2000s, that's my main influence. Tool, for example, kind of proggy stuff, and then later bands like Circus Survive, Carnival, all that kind of stuff. I really digged in.
Nice. Daniel?
Yeah, and for me it was, I mean, I had several phases. I mean, I think everybody of us had, but I think the initial rock phase that I had, the first time I got in touch with rock music was probably like the Foo Fighters, Red Hot Chili Peppers, something like that, when I was like, I don't know, 11, 12, something like that. And I think the band that got me more into like the more heavier sounds was indeed Slipknot. Not that I still listen to Slipknot, but that was like the first time I heard I was listening to some kind of metal music, or like, let's say, new metal, like also Limp Bizkit and Korn, of course, was something big for me. And yeah, I had like a punk rock, a pop punk phase with Blink-182, but then I was getting more into also progressive music, like as well. Tool was, I guess, for a couple of years my main influence, and there was just a whole new door that was opening up for me.
Yes, I think there comes a point in every musician's life when they discover Tool and they go, all right, I need to spend the next 2 months with this band and try to understand what the hell is going on here. They are phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, I'm similar. Most of the songs I react to on my channel are like metalcore metal songs, but I'm a big pop punk kid. I was in ska bands when I was younger. I was the vocalist in the pop punk band. So all about that range of things. And part of what fascinates me is when you have a diverse interest of different bands and styles and genres, when you get together with certain people and make music together, you don't necessarily make the kind of music as you might expect. You might think, well, I only listen to pop punk, let's say, and you get together in a band and you start playing like heavy metal because of this sort of unspoken collaboration between the musicians. When you jam, it just sounds heavier. You just go in that direction together. How did you come across the Intersphere sound? Did you get together naturally? Did you know each other as friends and then get into a rehearsal space and just jam out and this is kind of where it went? Or did you have a direction to start with?
Yeah, I'll give this word to Christoph because he's one of the founding members.
Yeah, we got to know each other when we were studying in Mannheim at the Pop Academy. And then we started to play in some projects, and I wrote some rock songs because there were a lot of pop music and a lot of German R&B soul stuff that was really hip when we started in Mannheim in 2003. And I loved the way how Moritz plays his drums, because he was a rock drummer right from the beginning, and I asked him to start a project to play some songs in 2004, I think. And in former times we had another guitar player and another bass player, and so we started in 2004 as a project playing some songs, and yeah, then the band grew up, and we had the chance to play some shows, and the people liked it a lot, and yeah, and then we played a lot of shows. I think we have played 750 shows, whatever, since that, and we grew together in the role of the band, and I can't explain it in the way I want it, but yeah, we played a lot, and everyone knows his place in the band, and we wrote a lot of songs, and we rehearsed so many times, and we spent a lot of time together on tour, and when we were studying, and yeah, that's the reason why we glued together.
And also, I think if I can add maybe one more thing, I think it's more like if you are with the right people in the band and make music together, like with really the same, or with people that have the same mindset about music and also have many different tastes, but you have that like common, just that you have like a common sense or like overlapping genres that you like, and I think we never, or we rarely talk about genres or styles that we want to do. It's just if we play together as us four, that's just how we sound like. I think that's just the thing. I don't know how it was in the beginning, but I think that's just how we sound if we make music together, and it's just the right people together on their instruments. I think that's probably it.
That sounds pretty healthy to me. I struggle with all the subgenres of defining things. It doesn't necessarily really matter, but it's just, I find that fascinating. And it certainly, you're saying you played over like 700 gigs. I mean, that is a ton. Two things come to mind. One is looking at some of the live videos you've done recently. You can tell that. I've obviously not been to a live gig of yours yet, but there's a tightness that comes with that repetition, that time together, and that kind of rehearsal kind of space. But also, after 700 gigs, do you still get those kind of butterflies and the kind of fire of, all right, well, it's our time, we're going on stage now? Or do you walk on going, okay, like it's like a living room now, it's very comfortable? How do you feel when you're doing your live gigs?
Well, at least for me, there's still some nervousness before the show, and but at the same time, of course, there's some kind of nervousness, but there's also confidence that we know what we're doing. I think that's a pretty good mixture, and maybe that's one of the reasons why people think we're a good live band, because everybody knows their place in the band and everybody knows what they're doing. And but as you said, it's not like oh, let's play another gig. Yeah, okay, that was fine. But it's really, there are still some, we are a bit nervous, of course, or at least I am, but that's, I think, always a good thing, because then you take it really seriously, I guess.
Nice. Back to what you're saying about kind of the genre side of things that you've not really thought about, and in particular, I suppose where that probably benefits you is when I was listening to the album Wanderer, although it is, in essence, it's a guitar rock band, there are so many different flavors in each song. There's moments where it's almost kind of like a dance song. Like there's some kind of build-up in a la carte, which is a very different delivery, this kind of spoken word rhythmic thing. And if you were a band that found that moment, you might make an album, all of that kind of sound, but you don't. Every song has its own kind of space to breathe. Wanderer, the song is completely different. Down is a completely different song as well. It's very kind of polyrhythmic and sort of experimental, I suppose, in some way. That I'd love to ask some questions about that in a moment. But when you go on to write a new song, do you start from a place of, how do I make this different from the last one? Or is it a case of you find a nice guitar lick or a bass lick or a lyric or melody idea, and then you just naturally build it from there? Do you have any kind of intention behind a new song when you start it?
Sure. The last track we decided to try everything that we didn't do before. That was the main topic. And most of the songs were written in the pandemic, and I wrote a lot of different songs during the lockdowns. When I was here in the studio, I had the time late at night. During the day, I had to take care of my children, and in the afternoon, I went to the studio and play around with the guitar and synthes and whatever. And I worked with samples, for example, and more electronic beats and elements. And I think that was really new for our songwriting. It was quite interesting for me. And it's very important to say that I always start writing, and I have some kind of fantasy language. I always sing when I'm writing. I have melodies in my mind, and in this case, I had that different layouts of some electronic. For example, Treasure Chest was a kind of R&B beat, and all these pads in it, and some weird guitar tapping stuff and whatever. And after that, I sent everything to the guys, and then we decided together, okay, is this an Intersphere song? Is it possible to play it in our context? And then we started to build everything new in a kind of pre-production in my studio, where we replaced the drums, and Moritz tried to play the electronic beats on his drum kit, for example, and Daniel did some kind of fuzzy bass stuff, which was kind of a Moog sound or something. And this was the way we went on the new record.
I actually have a question. You mentioned the bass sound there. In the song, and this maybe helps to answer it, in the song Bulletproof, after the kind of intro bit, when you go to the bass, and it's fantastic because the bass and the drums lock in this nice rolling groove. The bass sound, I thought might have been even like the low bass notes of a keyboard. It has that kind of almost like a porn groove, like deep fuzziness to it. Is that the bass guitar through some kind of distortion pedal, or is that like a programmed in a keyboard thing?
It is indeed a real bass, and it's a really, really weird pedal. Probably Christoph can tell me the name of it.
It's the plasma coil.
Plasma coil. It's not really a fuzz or a distortion. It's just I don't know what the hell this thing is doing. And I think it has like what does it have inside? It's not a tube, but
I think it runs with gas or something.
With gas, yeah. It's lighting up, so it's whatever this thing is doing.
Mad.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. It's not like you have that. It's not like you have a gain knob or gain control. It's just does its weird thing. But completely analog. It's not really technically. I don't think it's a distortion. It's some
Right. I guess, yeah, if it's a gas, the sound, the waves must change when they're going through whatever that's.
Yeah. When we did the pre-production in Christoph's studio, I had a completely clean bass sound, but we just thought it's just sounds too funky, not dirty and not dirty enough. And and our engineer Moritz, he had this pedal with him in the studio. We just tried it out, and that's how it ended up. Yeah.
Yeah, we tried a lot of different distortion pedals, but the cool thing is with the plasma coil that there's a gate in it, and you can adjust it just of the length of the note, the boom 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 boom, and it doesn't sound that long that it becomes
it cuts really quickly, which is why it almost sounds like keyboard sound. It's why I couldn't understand it. Like, I don't think that's a keyboard, but I'm not sure I've ever heard a bass do that. So that's cool. It's good to know. I've learned something new today. Thanks for that. You mentioned your drummer earlier. Now, drumming is my main kind of instrument that I'm most proficient at. And I, obviously being a drummer, I would say this, but I think that every band is only as good as their drummer. And you have a phenomenal drummer in your one. I guess you must have found that when you were doing your kind of studies earlier on in that academy, and you're like, oh, he's good. Let's keep working on some stuff together. And I think it was the song Down that really spun my head around. And I was wondering if you could talk about how you came to that collection of rhythms, because Down seemed to me like it's a 12/4 kind of a song, but there are moments of vocal melodies that are almost like eighth notes. So it's a sort of polyrhythmic thing. And then the drummer is pushing beats before the downbeat of the first start of each bar. So it's, on first listen, I was so confused because I was hearing every piece and not knowing which thing was the main melody. Once you hear it more and more, you realize the whole expanse and everything comes in and out. But how does something like that come about? Is that you experimenting with your electronic kind of sampling things and overdubbing some bits and pieces when you're kind of writing initial ideas? Or would you write something and then Morris would come along and go, I got this idea for what to do drumming wise over the top that accentuates a certain thing? And how do you decide what's too complex or needs to be more simple? Or does that make any sense? How did you come together to create a song like that?
well, maybe first I have to say, because of course I know the reaction video that you did, and I was listening to you reacting to it. But at least for me, I think I can speak for all of us. I think there wasn't there weren't so many thoughts that went into it rhythmically. I think for us it feels pretty natural, actually. It just has this really halftime heavy groove to it, and for me it doesn't sound too complicated. But of course it's because I know that's good from the very beginning. But I just want to say it feels really natural to us, and I think we didn't really talk about it too much. I think the main challenge that we had, because the song was pretty similar when Christoph wrote the demo and the pre-production that he did by himself in his studio. But the challenge was to exactly what I was talking about, to make the groove feel more natural, because I think the main part, as far as I remember, was to decide also which kick drum hits to play and where to leave some space. And I think where to leave some space was actually more important than where to add something, because we wanted the groove to have a certain repeating structure, which I think the song has now, and that was basically more the challenge. And of course, then there's some, as you also as you were telling in your video, there are also some electronic percussive elements in the background as well. But Morris does actually play 90 or 95% of the groove. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a main groove with that.
Oh, I have it now. Yeah.
And then I had different shakers and 16s, hi-hats, and and Moritz tried to play everything. So, and he did it in a fantastic way. Yeah, it was really cool. But in the beginning, it was an electronic beat. Yeah.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I think it was that first offbeat kick pedal that you almost trip over, and if when you first said, whoa, what's going on? Is this a time signature I'm not ready for? But yeah, now it's I know I'm very familiar with the overall sound, and it's a fabulous song. As you know, I think. Do you have a kind of barometer in your heads about when you're writing something in terms of how, I suppose, technically complicated you might want to make it, or do you try and keep things simple enough? Do you think about the general audience who are maybe not as, I don't know, musicianship focused, and making sure that they're going to get something they want, but add little flavors of touches and decorations that really elevate a song to a level that they might not realize until they hear it in the 30th time. They go, hang on, there's a shaker I've just noticed that's doing this thing over here that makes it this extra level.
I think for us, the main reason when we decide, if we do artistic decisions during the songwriting and recording, does it feel natural to us, and does it make sense to us, and is it fun to play? I think we're not really considering too much what musicians, or especially non-musicians, think about it. I think the songwriting itself, so let's say the harmonies and the melodies, always have the main focus, I would say. But in terms of instrumentation, I think we just don't set ourselves any limits, and it has to feel natural, and it has to be fun for us. And we rarely, maybe sometimes, but that's actually rare, like stop Moritz from playing some kind of fills or something like that, because it's just part of our musical DNA and of our sound. So whenever he wants to do something, we just let him do his stuff. At least during the songwriting. And if we really have something where we say, okay, Moritz, maybe this little fill could be a bit more simple, of course, than we tell him. But most of the times we just let things happen, and if it feels natural to us, we just leave it in there. And I mean, there are also, like in the previous album, The Grand Illusion, I think of the album opener, which is called Don't Think Twice. It's actually a pretty kind of pop rock songs almost, but there's this super crazy fill in I think before the last chorus or something. But it's just the way we sound, and I think it's cool that we have the chance to do things like that, and we have a drummer like Moritz that can do things like that. Other than that, I think actually the instrumentation is, let's say, well thought, but not too complicated, I would say. I mean, we don't have any crazy fast guitar licks or anything. I think guitar and bass wise, it's more about harmonies and how we arrange those harmonies and how the bass and guitars fit together. I think that's more the complicated, if you can say so, part.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I've thought about this. I'm not a bassist. I mean, I have a bass, but I'm not really a bassist. But I notice in songs when the bass and the kick drum pedal, for example, lock in together, and moments where they don't. And I've wondered about the decision making behind that, because in Bulletproof, it did sound to me initially that would be an obvious choice to have the bass lick match exactly the drum beat in the verses, but it doesn't quite, right? Or is that just the magic of the plasma coil thing? Like, is it exactly with the drum beat, or is it slightly, sometimes yes, sometimes no?
Yeah, that's exactly the case. Yeah, sometimes we play together or are on the same beat, but there are also spaces where I play the bass line where there's no kick drum. Yeah, and it's just maybe we have to say about Bulletproof that especially the verse was kind of a journey. It sounded completely different in the first demo phase. I just wasn't that happy how it sounded at first. And it was during the pre-production phase that we were talking about earlier, when I tried something completely different. And that was actually the main groove that we have now in the song. Plus, then we had the the crazy sound that we found in the studio. Yeah. But yeah, there are some in between beats with the bass as well. Yeah.
Nice. This is a really tricky question, so I'm going to enjoy asking this one. What would you say is your best song as the Intersphere? Now, this, I imagine that this surely has a different answer for each of you. I don't know whether that means because it was really difficult to write, but it came out really nicely. But if you were to say the best song of the Intersphere is this one, in your view?
I'm going with Down.
Okay, good choice. I like that.
Yeah, I like Down, but my most favorite song is the song Choker from the Relations in the Unseen record. I like that really, really much. But we don't play it anymore. But
so you're sad about that, or you're like, because it had its time?
Yeah, maybe. But I like this song really, really much.
Yeah, from a previous record, The Grand Illusion, it was the song Mind Over Matter. I think it was my favorite one of that album. And I think also one of for our fans, most favorite songs. But from the current album, I would say for me, it's Down and Wanderer. Yeah.
Yeah. Wanderer is amazing. Are you fans of Biffy Clyro? I'm assuming you're aware of them as a band.
Yeah.
Because Wanderer really reminded me that track of them. It's that sort of something about the syncopation with it, the ability to drop everything out and have a kind of nice, that moment with just the guitar and the vocals at the beginning, but then have the power later on. It kind of the freedom of expressing the music in a variety of ways within one song, and it totally somehow working in a sort of journey. Which is something I thought. I don't know why I decided to share that. This is my kind of context for this, because we don't really have, there aren't that many bands, I think, that either will allow themselves to have very simple, straightforward songs, and also some kind of more creative and meandering, interesting ones to live within the same record. And I think I think we need more music like that. So I just want to encourage more of that. What would you say in the almost 20 years of being together, and each of you can answer potentially differently for this, is your kind of greatest moment thus far that you're pleased with the band? Is it the most recent record and how that's turned out, or is it a particular gig or festival you played that you always wanted to? What's the current high water mark of what you've enjoyed most about the band so far?
Oh, there were a lot of nice festival slots. I liked a lot. We played Rock am Ring and some huge festivals in Germany, Open Flare and Taubertal, and there I like it when we are on tour and after 3 or 4 days the band works like a machine, and I like this part a lot when the crew and the band and everything is on point, and we can go out on stage and tear down everything. That's the best moments for me when we are ready to rumble.
For me, what comes in my mind it was actually one of the first gigs I had with the band. That was at a time when I was not officially in the band, but as a sub. And I think it was exactly 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago, when we were supporting Dredge. Mm-hmm. And I think a couple of months earlier, it was Carnival. But especially Dredge is a band that I grew up with, and a band that had probably one of the biggest influence in my musical career. And to see them during the sound check, to meet them behind the backstage, and being on the same stage with them was a pretty big moment for me. And that I still have that one in my mind. And of course, like Christoph said, touring in general, especially the release tours are always special, and big festival shows, of course, as well. But I think we are I would say, more of a club rock band that works really well, like in 200 to 500 capacity clubs. But yeah, especially like I said, during the release phase, when everything is fresh, people are craving for new material. That's probably the best feeling. Yeah.
Nice. Go on.
Yeah, I can remember on tour we we played in front of 500 people, and then we played the last song, Parallel Lines, on that tour in 2018, and everyone was quiet in the end, and it was a really fantastic feeling, and everyone was listening, and
Well, at the end of the song, there was like silence, where they were just captivated, or do you mean there was a hush when you started playing it, or?
No, in the end of the song, when we finished, we finished and
Wow.
and get even slower and more silent, and in the end, it was absolutely quiet in the room, and that was
you hypnotized the crowd with the song. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, that speaks to something that I love enormously, which is the live music aspect of things. There is something special about being in a crowd of other human beings, listening and enjoying the same music at the same time. And it can have effects like that. You can kind of, everyone's enthralled in the same moment. And I wondered are there particular songs off Wanderer that hit live either for you or you notice in the crowd in a way that you didn't necessarily expect? Or is there, are there kind of highs and lows that you could speak to about that record when it's played live?
Good question, but I think I have to take some minutes to think about that, because nothing comes in my mind like immediately. But in general, it felt great to play new songs. I don't know if something was like surprising or other than we would have thought some songs would be heard or listened to or be reacted to on stage or during the show. To be honest, nothing like that. But maybe if I think a bit longer about that, maybe something comes in my mind, but not immediately. To be honest.
It's great to hear that they all went just as well as you expected. That's what I get.
But what we can tell is
they'd slap.
But what we can tell, or what I can tell, we played Wanderer, the song Wanderer, before a couple of times. I think also 1 or 2 years before we released the song, and it was really, really tough for us to play that one. I don't know, because I think the way the rhythmic pattern works together with everything, the guitars, the kick, the bass, is something, and also I think in a tempo that we I think never had in a song before, and it really took some shows, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 shows until that song really felt natural on stage, because it wasn't a problem when we recorded it, neither during the pre-production or during the real production in the studio. But playing it live, when you're full of adrenaline, we always were, I think, or at least I felt like I was rushing all the time. Yeah. So that was, I think, really the hardest song to get on stage, like in comparison to playing it in the studio. In the studio, everything was fine, but it was quite a challenge for us to get that song on stage. Yeah.
Do you play with the metronome live, or is it just feel?
Always with a click, yes, at metronome.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Because I was thinking, for that song in particular, the main riff that would come with the full band, it's an offbeat, then an onbeat, then an offbeat, then an onbeat, and if you don't have any connecting note, you've got a big old gap to get it wrong on the off or the on, and there's a chance that the drummer and the bassist and the guitarist might have a different internal clock. So when you come in together, yeah, I could see how that might happen. But I suppose over many gigs, you get a feel for everyone's mutual tempo, and then maybe
as soon as we started the release tour, I think everything was locked together. But it's just the song always is a couple of BPM slower than everybody thinks it is when you're going on stage and play it as the gig or as the show opener. So that was the challenge that we had. Yeah.
Always. I don't know of anyone that doesn't rush a little bit live with the adrenaline.
I remember we had a songwriting week to write the at Chiemsee when we were written the second half of the album, and we rehearsed Wanderer several times, because we recorded the live version, which is also available on YouTube at Mish Battery, and Thomas and me, we rehearsed playing and doing the vocal stuff and the backing vocals every evening, 2 or 3 hours, and try to play it in the right way. And it was because there are so many arpeggios and lead stuff to play, which we didn't do normally. Normally I play chords and strummings and all this, or riffs or something that's not that difficult, but playing the melody lines and in that weird rhythm and singing, it was really difficult.
Did you regret some songwriting decisions? I should have made this simpler.
Yeah.
Because I recently discovered a band called Infant Annihilator, who are insane. They're kind of deathcore, absolutely insane. And apparently the drummer can't play the song from start to finish because it's so intense and mad. And it begs the question, does that matter? Like, people get annoyed, well, if you can't play it live, then it doesn't count. But then you might not have this song in audio form at all. So would you ever consider writing a song that you maybe couldn't play live and it was just, well, I wanted that song to exist, or having that experience of trying to rehearse for hours the backing vocals, etc., of Wanderer? Does that make you think, okay, in future I'm going to bear that in mind and make sure that I can play something that I can also do the vocals over for the live shows? Is that something that you consider at all?
I think that question, or I think that's not really a question for us, because every song that we recorded live in the studio together. We don't do any, of course we do some overdubs to some extent, but that's just a little bit of production add-ons. But we play every song in the studio for the record. We play together in one room and we rehearse it like that. So there is no overdubbing for the basic tracks at all. So maybe there of course some challenges regarding the vocals and playing your instrument at the same time. That's a different story, but
that's Christoph's problem. But you don't have to worry about
that. Sometimes it's my problem as well. But that's something that you will figure out over time. So that's just something you have to get used to, and then it's actually pretty easy once you figured it out. You have, of course, like Christoph said, Wanderer was pretty challenging to. I know that for Christoph and Thomas, who had to sing and play it, but other than that, yeah, like I said, we record everything live in the studio together, so it's never a question. It always works. We have some songs like I remember Destination, the last song of our album Hold on Liberty, as well as Shipwreck, the last song of our album The Grand Delusion. They have some more overdubs and also some more electronic stuff that would be a bit more difficult or would take some time to bring it on stage as it sounds on the record. But other than that, I think of the 60 songs that or 60 or 70 songs that we recorded, I think 99% are played live together, or at least rehearsed completely live together and recorded afterwards. Yeah,
that's fascinating to me. So did you opt for the full band recording live in the studio stuff for that kind of untouchable live feel where everyone's sort of together and it's got an extra element to it, so as not to be too kind of static? Because I imagine that would be the payoff, but the difficulty is you need everyone to be on it for those takes, right? So you must rehearse a ton before you record the live, the live studio versions for the album. Is that how that works?
Yeah, many reasons for that. And I think also if you look at it the other way, or at least if we look at it the other way around, the question would rather be, why shouldn't we play it live? Because A, it saves so much time. 2, you can listen to the immediate result as you finish recording, so not have to wait until there's the third or fourth or fifth guitar track that we had to record. And but it's also the thing about having the energy in the room and
playing more emotional, I think.
Playing more emotional, exactly. And also you don't get lost in the details that don't matter. So tiny mistakes here and there, they're still on the record. But do you hear them? I don't think so. And if so, bravo. But there's just like I said, the other way around. There would be no reason not to play live. And you were saying something about we have to be really well prepared and rehearse a lot. That is true, and that was the case always. So there was also always an intense rehearsal phase. But to be honest, for Wanderer, we didn't actually have that much time to rehearse, but we were just, let's say, trusting on our abilities, and it worked. So as soon as you have 2 or 3 records that we record live and play many shows, I think it's doable. But of course, but to be honest, I think it at least for me, I feel less pressure playing it live in the room, because I know that not every little detail or mistake is gonna matter, because we only listen to the full band mix when we decide on was it a good take or not. And if there are some small things here and there that you would have liked to be a little bit more perfect or a little bit different, you can always change that one part. But it's not sense. Like four or 5 guys are looking at you in the control room and, hey, was that right? Was that 16th note a bit off? I mean, fuck it. Who cares? No.
Yeah, I imagine you can get paralysis from perfection, trying to achieve. You're on your own doing every layer. Like, well, you could be there all night doing the same riff again and again, and that would drive you mad.
And I mean, there are genres, to be honest, that where that kind of tightness matters, but that kind of organic rock band sound that we have just doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be organic. It needs to have energy, and it needs to have groove. But groove doesn't come from being
and a little bit of dirt.
Groove doesn't come from
rock
being
music. It's not supposed to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a good point, because on the 100th take, if you're doing an individual guitar lick, whatever, you might nail it. You might play it exactly right, but you might have no feel in it. It might have no purpose beyond just the notes in a row. And then you might as well just program it, right?
Yeah, but also, to be honest, after that, I mean, I and also Christoph, we recorded other bands many times, and usually after the 10th or 20th take, no good things happen. So that's, I mean, we play probably around 6 or 7 live takes, and then we know that it's not going to be better. And usually it's the 3rd or 4th take that we use as the main track, and that's it. Yeah.
You've been together for so long now, and it's part of your resilience, I'm really impressed with the fact that you've been able to sustain a band touring kind of lifestyle, because from my experience, it's either like you just lose money, or if you're one of the fortunate ones, like make it massive, then you can make more money than you can spend. But there's not a whole lot in between, unless you want to be in like a wedding band here in the UK. That seems to be the kind of the life. You've recently, I think it seems like it's recently based on the internet, started a kind of Patreon world. Is that something that is quite recent to help kind of make it a sustainable thing? And how has that process been? And how do you find the kind of the financial aspect of trying to keep the band going for yourselves?
Yeah, we started Patreon, I think one month after the pandemic started. So that was the time when just the whole income of playing live was gone from one day to another. So that was the kind of like the emergency plan, but also a plan.
Just pull the ripcord.
But also a plan that we think, or that we still think is such a good way to be sustainable as a band, because playing live alone, and I mean, we don't have to tell you that selling records doesn't really bring any money, it just covers the cost. I think that's one of the best ways to be sustainable as an artist, not only as a musician, but other artists as well, being it designers or video artists or whatever they are, also on Patreon. And for us, when we started it and seeing that there are so many people who are willing to support us was phenomenal. And we still are so happy and grateful that we have those kind of fans that still support us on that platform. Yeah.
I think it's a great way of getting closer to your fans and helping them feel closer to the band. It sounds from looking at your Patreon page, they get to see some of the songwriting or recording process and your thinking behind things and see how things develop. I saw from a comment from one of the members of the band, but probably I'm assuming the drummer, that there are drum playthroughs if you want to kind of learn how he's doing what he's doing. And I think that's a phenomenal thing that people did not have 20 years ago when you started your band, right? So the internet can be used for such good, and I'm glad that we're in a world now where this can happen. People can get closer to the music in that way. It's very cool. What advice? Sorry, yeah, go on.
No, I just wanted to say, I think at least for me, it feels also that we can be a bit more honest on Patreon, because on social media everything always is the perfect world and everything, but I have the feeling on Patreon where it's not, where a couple of thousands of people are reading it and scrolling through their feed in milliseconds. I think also when we do those kind of we don't do it that regularly, but sometimes we do those monthly updates where we write a blog post, what's going on with the band, but also what's going on in our minds. And I have the feeling it's kind of a space where we can take our fans with us, what's really happening behind the curtain and not what's seen on the perfect social media world. So maybe that's also another thing that's to be considered on Patreon. Yeah,
that makes sense, and it links as well with your attitude towards your wanting to record things as a live band, and in that way it's the realness that kind of matters. It anchors it in authenticity, and that is a far more I guess innately human, responsive, enjoyable thing, I think, for both them and for I imagine for yourselves. So it makes total sense. We're coming up to the end here. I was interested in, so I wonder how different, I'm going to be interviewing a bunch of artists as part of this podcast, and I'm assuming people feel differently about different parts of being in a band. And I've sliced up 5 different sections of it. I'd love to know what you think is the most enjoyable and what is the hardest elements of it. And I would say there's the writing process, there is the recording process, there's a rehearsal process, and then touring, and then the live performance itself. Is there one thing within that end-to-end kind of process that you think, this is the reason I do this? If I could do this all day, every day, that would be the dream. And what do you find to be the most challenging thing that you're like, I will do this because it helps me get to the fun stuff that I really enjoy?
Okay, I have an answer, but there are 2 sides of it. I would choose playing live, but I also choose playing live because we don't do it every day. And I think it needs to be something special. I used to be on tour with an Italian artist, like really it was just it was a big job, but it was, a job where I played the same set every evening. The first 10 sets were, was completely overwhelming. Wow, how did I end up here on this huge stage? 20th show, still phenomenal, but after the 80th or 90th show, the whole excitement went completely down. And I think that's the same also for a band like we are. If you play every night for the whole year, then it's just the excitement goes down like linear. So I would choose playing live, but also because we don't do it every day and it's still something special.
Yeah, I really like the studio time when everything is written, and then you see how the whole song gets excited. So that's for me the most interesting part. And then playing live for sure to get the applause and the feedback from the people. And for me the hardest thing is writing, to find new ideas, and especially writing lyrics. It's always a fight with myself and the song and the melody and the rhythmic and all that stuff, because I always record a kind of, as I formerly said, a kind of fantasy language. and it's really hard to fill in that kind of melodies with good, really good content and make everything sound good. And yeah, that's really hard. But sometimes it took a little bit longer. But in the end, I'm really happy when everything is done and we can go in the studio and have fun.
Nice. The payoff is worth it. But yeah, once you get through the writing and then it's in the studio, it comes together. And Daniel, that would have been my answer as well. But I've never thought about that, because if you had ice cream every day, eventually you'd be kind of sick of ice cream, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Very good. All right. Thank you very much for that, for all your time and your insights. It's been really, really great to chat to you both. I suppose I've alluded to this at the start, but I wonder if we could leave people with what's kind of next for yourselves. I guess you've got a tour coming up in February of next year in Germany. Are you going to come to the UK at some point soon, hopefully?
I mean, we've been to the UK a couple of times. We still think that we'll come back, of course. Just at the moment, we don't have anything that's official. Also, to be honest, it's not getting easier playing in foreign countries for us, because all of us has family now and stuff. But
also, Brexit has ruined fun for everyone. That's not great.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, every day we're like, who did this? Anyway.
But yeah, we've played also some festivals in UK and club shows. But at the moment, we just don't have anything that's official at the moment. Yeah.
So another record on the horizon at some point, right? Yeah, of course. Otherwise, I'll go to Germany. Like, I'll have to make that happen. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, folks. It has been fascinating to talk to you both today. I really appreciate your time, and I've learned a new thing about a bass pedal. Oh, the plasma cannon, whatever it was coil, plasma coil. So I'm going to Google that right afterwards and check out some more about that. So wonderful. Thanks, folks. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I look forward to hearing your next music as and when that comes out.
Thank you for having us.
And there we have it. That was the interview with the Intersphere. Lovely dudes. Really enjoyed talking to them. If you want to talk about that interview, or you want to suggest some bands you think I should interview in future, there is a free Discord server you can join via the link in the description. I'd love to chat to you about all things rock music. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed it and you want to leave a review on whatever podcast service you check this out on, please do. Otherwise, I look forward to hopefully seeing you in the next episode.